My fiancée treated me like furniture that paid rent, until I moved out while she was gone, left 43 fake spiders hidden across the apartment, and a note that said, "You didn't get hurt. You got caught, all right." Read it. My fiancée thought she was running circles around me, cheating, deceiving, and treating me like a piece of furniture that happened to pay rent. So I decided, fine. Enjoy what's coming. I packed everything that mattered and left her a little going away surprise she won't be forgetting anytime soon. Let me walk you through the whole thing from the top. I'm a licensed electrician. I own a 4-man crew. We do residential and light commercial work all over the Atlanta metro area. Long hours, dirty hands, solid income if you keep your head right about money. I don't chase people. I don't put on a show to make someone feel better about themselves. And I have never once in my life begged to stay somewhere that wasn't already mine. I met Lucy through a mutual friend named Darius, who runs informal introductions like it's a second career. Birthday dinner, around 20 people. Relaxed. I wasn't even planning on staying the whole night. She was a real estate agent, put together, knew how to own a room without making it obvious she was doing it. She asked me real questions. About the work, about running a crew, about whether I actually wanted to be there or had just kind of drifted into it. I told her the truth. I liked fixing things. Liked knowing exactly what a job required and delivering it right. She laughed and said she did the same thing with properties. Something about that just clicked. 2 people who actually did what they claimed. By the 4-month mark, she'd met my brother Troy. Troy runs a licensed pest control business, and he's the one person in my life I trust without any asterisks. He doesn't hand out approval just because you want him to. He watched her through that first dinner, mostly quiet, and told me afterward, "She's sharp. Don't forget that cuts both ways." I took it as good news, because honestly, that's what I was hoping to hear. She moved in with me around the 8-month mark. I'd been the primary leaseholder in our building for 2 years already. Good building, north side of the city, secure front desk, hallway cameras, a security guy named Curtis who recognized every resident on site. The kind of place where you learn your neighbor's schedule without trying. When Lucy came in as an authorized occupant, never on the actual lease, just living there, she brought furniture, enough clothes to need half the closet, and 3 friends I'd eventually realize were running a kind of behind-the-scenes committee on her life that I was never once part of. Their names were Jade, Tiffany, and Renee. We'll get there. The spider thing surfaced about 4 months after she moved in. She spotted a daddy longlegs on the windowsill one evening and was off the couch and across the room before she'd fully processed what she was doing. Volume up, arms going. She pointed and said, "Deal with that right now." I dealt with it. She stood on a chair until I confirmed it was gone, then had me check the wall next to it, then the sill again. Completely serious the whole time, completely aware it made no logical sense, and completely past caring. "I know it's irrational," she said. "I just can't shake it. They're just wrong." I laughed. She said it wasn't funny. It was a little funny. I logged it as a fact about her. Nothing more than that. Not yet. 10 months in, I proposed. Piedmont Park on a Sunday morning before the crowds arrived. Ring in my jacket. I'd looked at 3 before I found the right one. The others felt like they were making a statement. This one just looked like something she'd actually wear every day without thinking about it. She cried, called her mom. Troy shook my hand and said, "Finally. Now you're legally someone else's problem." That's about as warm as Troy gets, and I'll take every version of it. She was genuinely happy that night. No performance in it. Just dinner. Just the 2 of us. Just her being present the way she wasn't always present. I want to put that on record, not because it changes anything, but because the only way this story holds together is if you understand I wasn't completely fooled by someone fake. I was fooled by someone who was real enough, often enough, that I kept making excuses for the parts that weren't. The engagement started out well. We made loose plans, venues, rough dates, family lists. No pressure on the timeline. I pulled more stuff out of storage. We cooked Sunday mornings, went to some games. Troy would come over and we'd grill out on the balcony, the 3 of us, using whatever was in the fridge. On those evenings, she was exactly the person I'd proposed to, easy, warm, actually paying attention to what was happening in front of her. There was one Sunday where we went back and forth for 2 hours over whether shrimp counted as a real protein, and she ended up pulling the article up herself and reading it aloud just to win. That was her at her best. That version of her started showing up less. Not with some big dramatic blow-up, just gradually. The way a signal gets weaker the further you travel from the source. I noticed it and told myself I was imagining things. That habit alone cost me about 4 months. Getting treated like you're part of the building doesn't happen overnight. It starts with small tests you pass because you're a reasonable person. You pass one, the threshold resets, you pass the next. By the time you notice how far things have shifted, getting back to the starting point would take real effort. The issue wasn't that she had expectations. The issue was that the expectations only ever ran in one direction, and they only ever went up. Here's how it unfolded, in order. The public stuff came first, subtle enough that you couldn't really call it out in the moment. Work dinner, 8 months into the engagement. A table full of her colleagues, everyone going around saying what they do. Before I could answer, Lucy jumped in with a smile for the whole table. He runs a little electrical operation. Super handy to have around. 4 licensed guys. Service truck. Client list booked out 6 weeks minimum. I smiled, made a mental note, let the table move on. Handy to have around. Like I was a feature of the building. The private treatment came second. One evening I walked in from a 12-hour shift, still in my work clothes. She was on her phone at the table and looked up and said, no particular edge in her voice, "Can you grab dinner? I'm kind of in the middle of something." I ordered the food. Ate it. Thought about what that same moment would have looked like a year earlier, when she'd have put the phone down and asked how the day went. The distance between those two versions of the same night said more than she knew. The Troy situation was the most deliberate. Lucy had a problem with how close my brother and I were. She started picking at it. You two still act like you're in high school. Does everything have to go through Troy? At a dinner with her friends, she called us sweet but a little codependent while the table laughed. I texted Troy about it later. He said, she's trying to cut the line. Don't let her. He was right. You isolate a man from the one person who talks straight to him, and you can manage him indefinitely. That's exactly what she was going for, and she knew it. One night she mentioned, almost as a compliment, that she'd told her friends I was the reliable one, said it in a tone like she was describing a decent piece of equipment. Jade had apparently agreed. Lucy passed it along like it was a funny observation. He's steady, right? Like a really good appliance. I asked if she'd said anything back. Oh, you know Jade. That was the whole response. I didn't say anything after that. Jade ran Lucy's whole approach from the background. Make him chase, never apologize first, stay in control. She tossed around legal language with a lot of confidence and very little accuracy. Tiffany escalated by reflex, the kind of person who spots a small fire and immediately starts looking for fuel. Renee filmed everything, narrating quietly like she was producing content for an audience that hadn't quite shown up yet. That last habit of Renee's was going to matter a lot. One more thing before I get to the actual red flags. And honestly, this is the moment where I stopped making excuses. She posted a story one Friday night when I believe she was at a showing in Marietta. Dimly lit restaurant, her glass raised, a man's hand right there on the table next to hers. Caption, good energy tonight. She'd tagged Midtown, on the completely opposite side of the city from where she'd said she was. When I asked the next morning, she said it was a colleague celebrating a closed deal. Delivered it completely smoothly. The way you say something when you've run it enough times that it sounds natural. I nodded. Said nothing. But I was done giving the benefit of the doubt to Smoke. The phone behavior had already been there before that anyway. The screen tilt when it lit up, the instant grab, leaving it face down on her side of the bed at night. She'd never done that in the 2 years we'd been together. The late nights started stacking up, client dinner downtown, open house ran long, a third showing that ran late in 2 weeks. A developer named Brendan kept coming up more than the others. Just Brendan needs this, Brendan that, Brendan needs these documents. When I asked how his project was going, I got the kind of vague non-answer you never get from someone who actually knows their own work. And then there was that Saturday. She said she had a walkthrough in Decatur. Came home at 4:45 with a parking stub from a garage on the other side of the city. Wrong neighborhood. Wrong time window. I put the stub back in her pocket and finished the laundry. Thursday night, the notification hit. Both of us on the couch, her phone face up on the coffee table. Screen lit up. The preview just sat there long enough. Last night was something else. Still thinking about you. Phone in her hand in under 2 seconds. She glanced over to check my face. I was already reading the screen. She relaxed. I called Troy from my truck the next morning. Laid out everything, the phone, the late nights, Brendan's name, the story post, the parking stub, the notification. He went quiet for a second. You got a feeling, or you got facts? I told him I had a feeling with some very specific points attached. He said, then you're one step from facts. Don't move. Don't tip your hand. Get the whole picture first. I asked how long. However long it takes. You don't want to get this wrong. You get one shot at this. Don't take it until the angle is right. By Saturday morning, I had confirmation sitting open on the kitchen table. Lucy had her phone synced to her laptop. She'd done it herself. Messages transferred automatically. She used it at the kitchen table most mornings and left it open when she went to shower. That Saturday, she kissed me on her way out and left without closing the lid. I sat down at the table. It was open, synced, logged in, messages right there on the screen. I want to be clear about that. I didn't bypass a single thing. 3 threads. Brendan went back almost 5 months. A second contact saved under just initials, newer, more intentional feeling. A third name I didn't recognize at all, the most active of the 3. 3 men. Months of it running alongside our actual life, in our actual apartment. Those conversations had their own rhythm, their own shorthand, a whole separate timeline that had nothing to do with mine. I took 16 screenshots and sent them to Troy with 6 words, tonight. No drama. We execute. He replied in 40 seconds, off tomorrow. Say the word. Then, you okay? Working on it. Goodbye tomorrow. And that was true. Confirmed betrayal has a specific shape to it. There's a quick drop, then the floor hits, and after that, you either stay down or you get up and start moving. I've been moving in a practical direction for weeks without fully understanding why. Now I understood what the shape was called. I closed the laptop exactly as I'd found it. Sat at the kitchen table for 5 minutes doing nothing. Didn't try to weigh every good memory against every lie. That math doesn't go anywhere useful. I just let it move out of the maybe column into the permanent one. Then I got in my truck, drove to Smyrna, and finished a panel rough-in for a client who'd been calling all week. Nice older guy. Kept offering sweet tea every single time I came back to the property. I don't know why that detail sticks. It just does. She got back that evening. We ate, watched part of a game. She asked how the Smyrna job went. I told her I had a client who kept arguing my panel quote was too large, called me back 3 days later when he'd overloaded it. She laughed. Said, classic, I laughed too. Normal Saturday night. All of it completely real. All of it already finished. Both of us in the same room, on opposite sides of a line only one of us knew was there. That's the strange part about that night. Nothing felt off. The food was good. The conversation was easy. The version of her from moments like that was still real. It was the other version, the one I now had in 16 screenshots, that wasn't. She fell asleep on the couch. I got up to get some water and noticed her blanket had slipped off. I moved it back without even thinking, then stood there for a second, realizing what I was doing. The kind of automatic habit that builds up when you've been looking after someone long enough that you stop checking first. I set it back down and went to bed. Slept fine. The work had already been done on the inside. Everything else was just logistics. When she headed out Sunday morning, what she called a showing in Sandy Springs, I sent Troy one text, now. Troy pulled up at 8 with a flatbed cart, wardrobe boxes broken flat, a printed checklist, and a heavy duffel he told me to leave alone. 8 years in pest control does specific things to a person's understanding of space and what tends to hide in it. Troy had spent Saturday evening at a party supply warehouse and turned up Sunday morning with 43 fake spiders in 3 sizes, arranged on my kitchen counter. They looked like a professional operation. Small rubbery ones, almost harmless looking. Large hairy tarantula props with enough surface detail that your body reacts before your brain finishes processing. She's still bad with them? He asked. I thought about her standing on that chair. The pointing, the wall check. Severe, I said. Good. But first, we move your stuff. Everything clean, everything documented. We moved fast. Tools, equipment, my furniture pieces, the TV I'd owned before the lease, gym gear, personal things. Troy's rule for anything that might be disputed, 2 seconds of hesitation means you leave it. We weren't there to take anything we couldn't back up. We were there to get out clean and complete. I'd been the primary leaseholder in that building for 2 full years before Lucy ever moved in. She was an authorized occupant, never on the actual lease. Philip at the front desk confirmed the freight code, handed me the log sheet, went back to his monitor. No commentary. Exactly the kind of interaction I needed. Troy handled every exchange in the lobby while I stayed focused on the work. He'd established this before we started, your job is boxes and silence. My job is anything that needs words. Curtis from building security gave us a nod during one of the trips, the kind of acknowledgement from someone who's seen everything and knows exactly what a deliberate, clean exit looks like. He held the elevator door without being asked. Mrs. Okafor appeared in the hallway during one of the middle trips. Retired, home most mornings, treats the building corridor like a nature documentary she's been assigned to cover. She asked if we needed a hand. Troy said we were fine and that she might want to stay in that evening because things could get interesting. She nodded like someone accepting a briefing. "I'll have my phone charged," she said, and went back inside. Then the FaceTime came in. Troy at the freight elevator, me pulling a wardrobe box down the hall. Lucy's name on the screen. Not a text, a video call. Troy looked down the hallway and raised one eyebrow. I declined it. Set the phone back on the box and kept moving. She texted right after, "Miss you. Just wanted to check in. Call when you get a chance." I didn't respond. "She wants to see the apartment," Troy said from behind me. Interesting timing. Whether she sensed something or it was coincidence, it didn't change anything. We kept moving. 3 loads done by late morning. Everything staged near the elevator or loaded into Troy's truck. By noon, we were clear. Troy went through the spider plan the way he handles any job: scope, placement, goals, zero room for actual harm or damage. Rules stated out loud so I'd remember them: fake only, no adhesives, nothing hazardous, no live animals, all removable by hand. One-time thing, not ongoing, not repeated, a message she'd find on her own schedule. That was the framework, and we didn't stray from it. Wave 1 was immediate impact, the entryway corner, positioned where peripheral vision catches movement before your brain finishes the thought. The coffee maker she used every single morning. The bathroom mirror edge, right in the sightline when you reach for the light switch. Wave 2 was delayed discovery, the cabinet above the sink, behind the pantry items. The closet rod between 2 of her jackets. The spots you reach into without looking. Wave 3 was the main event, her bedside charger area, the one she reached for half asleep every morning, hand moving before her eyes even opened. Her makeup bag, the flat iron caddy she went into on pure reflex. Troy placed those last and slowed down doing it. "This is the craftsmanship portion," he said, not looking up. Every single one was obviously fake up close. That was intentional. Real would have been cruelty, and we weren't there for cruelty. We were there for a message. The kind that sticks the way very specific truths tend to stick. There was a small framed photo on her nightstand. First trip we'd taken together, somewhere up in the North Georgia mountains. Maybe 7 months in. She'd made us pull over at a roadside overlook and handed her phone to a stranger. We looked happy in it. We were happy in it. I held it for a moment, then set it back exactly where it was. That was her memory. I was taking my tools, my clothes, and my self-respect. That was plenty. The note went on a plain index card. Regular handwriting. I saw everything. Every message, every name, every night you told me you were somewhere else. Nothing was locked and nothing was bypassed, it was open on the table. "I'm gone. Lease paperwork is in process. You'll need to qualify independently or vacate. The management office has the details. As for the apartment, don't worry. I left you some company. Exhibit A, fake spiders. Exhibit B, real betrayal. You didn't get hurt. You got caught." I left it on the kitchen counter and went downstairs to the leasing office. Dana pulled up the account. I told her I was initiating a lease modification. Primary leaseholder. Lucy was an authorized occupant. She'd need to apply independently or make arrangements to leave. 30-day window. Forms on file. On the record, I turned in my key fob at the front desk. Lucy still had her own key and fob, fully active. She could come and go exactly as before. The only thing that changed was my name's relationship to the exit. Troy was in the truck with the engine running when I came outside. "Everything clean?" he asked. "Everything," I said. He pulled out of the lot. "She's going to call," he said. "They always do." He wasn't wrong. Lucy got home a little after 6. I know because Mrs. Okafor across the hall had promised to keep her phone charged, and she came through on that. Jade and Tiffany showed up fast. Renee, orange jacket, phone already rolling, came up a few minutes behind. We were at Troy's kitchen table. His wife Carla had made plates for all of us. She sat down and said, "All right, I need the whole story." We gave it to her in real time as the updates arrived. She kept shaking her head in that specific way that's the complete opposite of disapproval. 6:44. Something happened in the kitchen. The reaction was significant. Wave 1 landing, the coffee maker spider. Then the closet rod. Then the bedroom. Then the main event. The text to my phone started shortly after. Calls, then voicemails, then threats that got progressively louder and more legally flavored with each one. Troy narrated them as they came in. First voicemail, mostly ambient noise. Tiffany in the background saying no, no, no as the pantry revealed itself. Track 1, the discovery stage. Second, Lucy's voice, controlled but tight, telling me to call immediately, that this wasn't something she was letting go. Jade coaching underneath, word for word, say weaponized. Say you have documentation. Say weaponized phobia. Lucy repeated it twice before the message cut off. Track 2, the legal consulting era. Third, Tiffany at full volume in the background. Troy listened for about 4 seconds. Track 3, loudest women currently operating in Fulton County. Carla covered her mouth. Troy just shook his head like a man who had called every moment of this sequence. I kept eating. Mrs. Okafor's final update arrived close to midnight. They just left. 9 years in this building and tonight was the most entertainment since the Super Bowl. Also, the one in the orange jacket screamed, "I know they're fake." In the hallway at full volume. At least 3 doors open to check. The social media spiral kicked off that same night. First post, a vague quote about betrayal and people who weaponize private vulnerabilities. No context, because context meant explaining the spiders, which meant explaining why I left, which meant explaining what she'd actually done. Comments asked what happened. She deleted it. Reposted something about people who use personal fears as weapons. Comments asked again. She turned them off. Then Jade tried a more controlled version, carefully worded, strategically framed victimhood, got a wave of support from people who only had her side. Then Darius, who had my timeline and was about to have more of the story, dropped one sentence in the comments, "Why did he move out, though?" She deleted the entire post 11 minutes later. Some questions are just too clean to spin around. Then Renee's clip surfaced. She'd posted to her own story earlier that night, filming inside the apartment, camera on Jade mid-monologue, and Jade on camera, in full voice, so what if she had options? He was going to find out eventually anyway. The clip lasted maybe 15 minutes before someone screen recorded it and got it to Darius, who forwarded it to me with one emoji. The chess pawn said it all. I posted one thing that night, "Single looks good on me." Put the phone face down and went to sleep. All 3 men from those message threads went quiet by the next day. Brendan first, then the other 2. A mutual contact told me later that Brendan had gone noticeably low profile and seemed like he'd prefer to be anywhere else. That tracks. That's what happens when men who exist on the side of someone's real relationship suddenly feel the cost going up. They were never built for difficult moments. They were around because it was easy and risk-free. The second neither of those things was true, they were all gone before she'd even finished her first voicemail. Not one of them checked on her. Straight to invisible. I wasn't surprised. I was the one who'd shown up consistently for 2 years, managed the lease, covered the gaps, built the actual daily life around her. She'd described that as boring and convenient. I'd invite her to compare notes with Brendan on what showing up actually looks like when it costs something. Monday morning, Dana called. Building policy required any complaint involving alleged harassment to be documented in person before going to formal review. Lucy had come downstairs with Jade and filed claims of property tampering, psychological harm, and intentional distress. Dana asked if I could come in before noon. 11 o'clock, I told her. I texted Troy, lobby, 11 a.m. already moving. We walked in at 10:58. Lucy was near the front desk like she'd claimed the spot. Jade on her left, Tiffany on her right, Renee a half step behind with her phone at chest height, already recording. Dana stood behind the desk with a clipboard and the expression of someone who's handled every version of this before and just wants to be done by lunch. Curtis near the elevator bank, arms crossed, watching everything, saying nothing. Lucy looked at me. I nodded at Dana. "You called?" "I'm here." Dana ran through it flatly, property damage to the unit, threats, direct or implied, hazardous or harmful materials. Jade stepped in before Lucy could answer. He deliberately weaponized a documented phobia response as a targeted act of emotional and psychological. "I'm asking about property damage first," Dana said, still writing. "No damage," I said. "Everything I removed was my personal property, logged on the freight elevator record from Sunday morning. What I left behind was a collection of novelty rubber spiders from a party supply store. Removable by hand. No adhesives, no surface damage. All still in the unit." Curtis from the elevator bank, "So, fake spiders?" "Correct." Jade recalibrated, "That's procedurally irrelevant to the intentional infliction standard, which requires only that the conduct be extreme and outrageous in the context of a known." Troy, from just behind my shoulder, "Can you spell fake correctly in the filing? I just want the tarantula on record under its proper name." The lobby went quiet for longer than it should have. Tiffany looked at Jade. Jade looked at the clipboard she didn't have. "I vacated the unit," I said, cutting through. I had full authorized access during the move out, documented with the front desk and timestamped on the elevator log. She returned to her own apartment. Nothing was done to her. Nothing threatened, nothing damaged. I looked at Dana. Elevator log in the file. Sunday morning freight code. Primary leaseholder signature on lease modification paperwork filed at 12:44 p.m. Tiffany stepped forward. You did this because she was done with you. Nobody ended anything, I said. I moved out Sunday morning before she got home. I made the decision. I executed it. I was already gone. That doesn't fit the story you came here to tell, which is why you're standing in a lobby instead of having this conversation somewhere private. The math on Lucy's face was visible. No version of this scene was ending the way she'd planned. You had no right going through my private. Nothing was locked and nothing was bypassed, I said. Your laptop was open on the kitchen table. Messages were synced to the screen. I read what was right in front of me. I reached into my jacket, placed one printed screenshot on the desk, and slid it toward her. Her words, her message, he's steady and easy. Honestly, a little boring, but he handles everything. Convenient. I left it sitting there. Didn't explain it. Didn't build anything around it. The words said exactly what they meant. Jade looked at it. Her expression moved from recognition to calculation to carefully neutral, all in about a second and a half. That last part was its own kind of tell. Tiffany went quiet for the first time since we'd walked in. Renee lowered her phone 3 inches. Instinct, not intention. The lobby felt different than it had 2 minutes before. You didn't get hurt, I said. You got caught. Dana noted something on her clipboard, said she had everything she needed for the file, and thanked everyone for coming in. Building management's version of closing a gavel. Done. I turned toward the parking deck. Lucy followed, all 3 of them behind her, Renee's phone back up, and stepped in front of me near the exit. She'd planned this part. I stepped in close. Quiet. No heat in it. Move. She held it for 2 seconds, deciding if this was the hill. Then, louder than she meant, this is going to court. Emotional distress. You are going to court, I said, for fake spiders? Under oath in a Georgia courtroom, you're going to tell a judge the rubber tarantula by the charger caused documented harm. I genuinely hope you do. Bring Renee's footage, everything from inside the apartment, everything from this lobby 10 minutes ago. Let a judge hear Jade explain, so what if she had options? Jade said nothing. That was the loudest thing she'd done all day. That's Exhibit B, Troy said from behind me, in case anyone needs the index. Tiffany said something. I was already walking. Go home, I said without turning around. You've got roommates. Troy caught up at the truck. He stood there for a second, then just unlocked it and waited while the parking deck went quiet around us. Exhibit B didn't even need to leave your pocket. He started the engine. You know what actually gets me? She had something real. A stable guy, a solid home, someone who showed up every single time without an agenda. She traded all of it for 3 men who were gone overnight the moment things got complicated. He pulled out. That's not bad luck. That's bad character. And bad character doesn't reframe itself no matter how many posts you delete. Nothing to add to that. He was right, and it didn't need any help from me. I blocked Lucy that afternoon, no speech, no announcement. The conversation was finished. The record was complete. And anything she sent after that was noise I had no obligation to receive. The smear campaign didn't last the week. The problem with building a narrative around fake spiders is it requires explanation. And every explanation opens the one question she couldn't answer: why did he leave? Jade tried to keep the lawsuit angle alive for a few days before the logic fell apart. No damage, no threats, fake spiders in an apartment where I had documented authorized access. Dana's checklist had established all of that on record, and Jade wasn't about to pay an actual attorney's hourly rate to hear the same conclusion with credentials behind it. The footage did what footage always does. Renee's clip of Jade made its way around the edges of their social circle by Tuesday. Every time Lucy tried to reshape the narrative, someone had a version of that video, so what if she had options? He was going to find out eventually anyway. On camera. Her actual voice. The support her posts had gathered quietly recategorized itself. Comments didn't turn hostile, they just stopped. Silence is its own kind of ruling. She switched her main account to private within the week. The social media version of slipping out the back door and hoping no one clocked which direction you went. Darius texted me that second week. No apology on her behalf, no brokering. Just, heard the whole thing. You handled it right. Then a minute later, she's telling people she's healing from a toxic relationship. I read that twice. Some things don't need a response. And some people understand that without being told. Thumbs up. He sent one back. That was the whole conversation. Dana called 2 weeks after the lobby meeting to confirm the lease modification had gone through. Lucy's income qualified her for the unit on her own. She kept the apartment. Good. I hope it gave her some version of the win she needed it to be. I paid for a lot of what made that place comfortable over 2 years. But that's not what I was walking away for. New place within 3 weeks, better light, lower floor than the old one, quieter, my furniture where I wanted it. And I finally got the couch I'd been putting off for 2 years because Lucy thought it was too dark for the room. Nobody's opinion required. Back to my regular rhythm. Early starts, job sites, Thursday dinners with Troy. Slept fine. People expected me to have some big internal process to describe. There wasn't much to process. Grief and anger both need a gap between what you thought you had and what you actually got. I'd been narrowing that gap for months. By the time I physically walked out, most of the work inside was already finished. Troy came over the first weekend after I got settled. Walked through the place, stood in the kitchen, nodded once. "Zero spiders," he said. "All mine," I said. His wife Carla looked around and said, "You two are completely unhinged." She was smiling. Troy raised his glass to exhibit be never needed, he said. "Look, here's the version of this I'll only say once." She treated me like I was infrastructure, steady, easy, convenient. The kind of thing you use without any gratitude because you assume it'll always be there. I let it go on longer than I should have because the version of her I proposed to was real enough in the good moments that I kept making excuses for the rest. The good moments were real. So was Exhibit B. I don't need the acknowledgement, or the apology, or the moment where she finally gets it. I needed to leave on my terms with every document in order, and leave something behind that said what needed to be said in a language that couldn't be performed around or buried under a deleted post. There's a specific kind of loss when you find out you were used by someone you were genuinely good to. It doesn't quite feel like heartbreak. It feels more like discovering that a contract you signed in good faith had terms buried in the fine print you were never shown. Once you've named it for what it is, the grief doesn't really have anywhere left to go. There's nothing worth missing about a performance. What you actually miss is the real version, the person from the good moments. That person was worth proposing to. I was right about that part. I was just wrong about the ratio. The last thing I'll say about Lucy, she miscalculated the one variable she had complete information on. 2 years of me being reliable made her think reliable meant permanent, that I'd absorb whatever the situation needed and still be standing there when she came back. The management play had worked well enough for long enough that she stopped checking whether I was still choosing to stay. I wasn't. And honestly, I still don't know which of her friends got the full story to Darius before she deleted everything. I have a guess, but I've never confirmed it. And I probably won't. That chapter's just left open. Turned out one line was enough anyway. You didn't get hurt. You got caught.